Hola, and welcome to Vive Nutrition Radio, the first ever Spanglish podcast where you will hear interviews with the top minds in nutrition, performance, fitness, and health in both English and Spanish. Here is your host, expert registered dietitian, Andres Ayesta, on a mission to help you take your nutrition to the next level. Hope you're ready for this. Let's dive right in.
What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Vive Nutrition Radio. This one, it is actually transmitted and recorded from Tampa, Florida. We are back in the game, baby. We are back from Asia after where we spent an amazing 3 weeks traveling through Thailand and Bali in Indonesia. And it was a surreal experience, from landscapes to food to people to animals to just a complete different vibe. And I'm going to be honest, we came back and not only are we jet lagged, but we had a little, we're just going to call it, I guess, sort of depression through the weekend, because it just made us realize that we want to do so much more travel, and we were happy to be home, but at the same time, there's just such a vast world out there to see, and we haven't even explored a small piece of it. And we were just thinking that that's something that in the next upcoming years it's one of the areas that we really want to explore a lot more. So we are excited to continue our travels in the future, because you learn so much and you enrich yourself in the best way possible. I think it was I don't remember, it was Paulo Coelho or somebody that kind of said something along those lines of traveling is usually the best way to grow as a person. So especially spending 3 weeks outside of your comfort zone and going and traveling and figuring things out, it was definitely a really great experience. But today's podcast is actually about some nutrition and fitness related aspects of that trip, because I've never been on such a long trip before in my life. I've actually never flew more than 6 to 7 hours on a plane, and obviously there's a lot of things that I learned in the times that I was gone. But to my surprise, it's not to my surprise, it's happened before, but I came back and I stepped on the scale and I lost about 5 to 6 pounds. And people actually asked me, it's like, do you lose weight? And I actually did. I did lose about 5 pounds through my travels, and I know exactly why that happened. But the reason is actually, there's a few different reasons, of course, but today's podcast is going to be about some of my takeaways and some tips that I can give you if you actually go through either long haul travel or even short term travel, because I think I learned many different things from the nutrition standpoint that I can certainly share with you. But at the same time, today I went on my Facebook Live and to talk about New Year's resolutions mainly, but not necessarily resolutions, but a different way to set goals and the power of manifestation. So today's podcast should be fun. And again, I'm doing this last minute as usual, because I was not great at planning for podcast recording for the month of December, and I didn't really have any guests for this month after having a great lineup in the month of November and October as well. But hey, here I am, and I'm here to delight you with great value and content as far as nutrition. So hopefully you would find this helpful. Now, let's start from the beginning, from why I actually lost weight throughout this travel. And I was responding to one of my clients through one of my check-ins the other day, actually today. And we are so wrapped up, or we get our minds so wrapped up around exercise and training, and we think that if we don't train, we will not achieve our fat loss goals. And the reality of it is that it's important, but it's not fundamental. And let me explain that to you before some people start to jump into conclusions and saying that the dietitian says that exercise is not needed to lose weight or to lose fat. Yes, it is important, but it's not the end of all that you need to be able to accomplish it. And I can tell you this because I proved it over this entire trip, the duration of it. I was gone for 3 weeks and I lost 5 pounds, but I'm going to tell you exactly why that happened. It wasn't because I was exercising too much. I can tell you that. We exercised and we actually trained a total of 1 or 2 times per week throughout. So I guess like we did actual workouts. We did them for maybe 1 or 2 workouts per week, so closer to 5 to 6 workouts altogether, that they were actually planned workouts structured. One day we did CrossFit, another day we did some like a little circuit of like push-ups and stuff like that. Another one we went to like a hotel gym. The other one we went to another hotel gym. So we did probably closer to like 4 to 6 workouts out of 22 days. That is a lot less than what I normally do, but that's not the reason why I lost weight. I lost weight, and this is something that I'm not too happy about, because I probably lost some of the weight that I did not need to lose, which is muscle weight. Number one, we walked anywhere between 10 or 15 to 20,000 steps every single day. Not only that, but when we were in Bali in Indonesia, we climbed so much or so many steps. Insane. Every time that you would have to go to a beach, it was kind of like on a mountain. So you would have to go down the stairs or steps, and you had to climb up the steps. And they were millions, like thousands of steps. I'm not even kidding. It was an exhausting workout every single time that we had to do that. So again, these are things that we were doing, not like planned exercise. This was just part of our NEAT, or in our non-exercise activity, thermogenesis. And this is something that I emphasize with all of my clients. And I want you to start to think about this for 2020 as one of the areas that I feel like it's important for you to consider, which is just more movement in your life. I came back to the US and I'm sitting here, recording this episode. And I was actually looking at my Oura Ring, which is like the wearable that I have to track my sleep and my steps. And I haven't even gotten like closer to 3,000, not even like literally, as I'm opening this up right now, like 4,000 steps today, which is not a whole lot for being at 340. And that's insane. So like I'm looking at, like, for example, monthly, like I was averaging like closer to, well, like if I look at, 15,000 steps some days, and averaging like so many different ones, like 20,000 steps, 14,000, 11,000, 17,000. So again, when I look at that, it's essentially the reasoning why I had such a higher calorie expenditure. Now that is also added to, something I noticed, and this is something I shared with you guys in a couple episodes ago on my podcast, which is in Asia, the consumption of protein is much, much lower than I expected it to be, particularly in Thailand. Usually 2 ounces in max of protein. It's what the recommendation is for protein per serving, which is not a whole lot. Sometimes like 1 to 2 ounces is all that is required or recommended by dietary guidelines in Thailand. Not sure about Bali and Indonesia, but consumption of protein is a lot lower. So one of the things that I struggled the most was actually getting enough protein on a daily basis. I am a person that I as a dietitian, I coach a lot of my clients to follow moderate to high protein diets. And the reason for that is because, and I have explained this extensively, is protein is not only filling, it keeps you full, but at the same time, it helps you preserve and maintain muscle integrity. So this is why I think also my protein intake was not up to par, and it was not ideal, is because I do think that in the process of not doing as much resistance training, combined with a lack of dietary protein to the number or the levels that I usually consume on a daily basis, that just kind of measures up to probably a small loss of muscle mass, especially if I was maintaining in a calorie deficit every single day. Now, most of our meals sometimes were high in fat. I did have some alcohol in the process, but the reality of it was that I was probably not consuming enough calories, and also maintaining at a protein deficit as well was not ideal to preserve and maintain muscle mass. So maybe my muscle integrity suffered a little bit. So that's like what I need to kind of focus on recouping. So I actually came back and I started increasing my macronutrient and calorie intake just to make sure that I'm starting working towards that. And of course, that combined with resistance training and weightlifting, that is hopefully going to help me regain that back. But I tell most people this: muscles are like diamonds, extremely hard to get, but very easy to lose or somebody to take them away. Not somebody, but just, for them to go away because they're just so precious. And again, so hard to get. So you have to really do everything in your power to try to preserve it, maintain them, and protect them. And for that to happen, you have to really do a combination not only of resistance training, but at the same time, consumption of enough protein to preserve and maintain what we call a positive nitrogen balance, which is your body's using or your body maintaining a state in which it's producing more protein that it's basically breaking down. So that's something I noticed, and obviously that's going to come with some tips and some things that you can learn from this entire process. And also I'm going to give you some extra bonus tips as far as jet lag and some things that you can do if you're traveling across overseas, or if you're a coach and you're coaching clients that are going through this. This is also going to be significantly helpful. But yeah, so those are some of the bigger things that I learned in the process. As I mentioned 2 podcasts ago, like the culture in Asia, it's heavily predominant in carbohydrates, lots of fruits, lots of rice, lots of starches like that. They rarely eat anything with like grains like oats or usually some of the things that are mostly predominant in the Western culture. So that was like something like not even corn. They don't really do a lot of stuff with corn. It's mostly rice. So it was really interesting to see some of that from that perspective. But here's some really cool things that we did that I feel helped me maybe not lose as much weight as I could have if I didn't come prepared. So I actually recorded a video in the PP Islands talking about this, which is like the few things that you can bring with you to ensure that not only are you preserving and maintaining muscle mass, but you're also maintaining a good state of calorie intake, which is the kind of stuff that you bring with you. So we brought a good amount of food with us, and I don't know if I shared this with you guys in a couple episodes ago, but one of the few things that I usually recommend most of myself now that I learned this, and also some of my clients when they travel specifically for prolonged periods of time, is ensuring and you're focusing on proper fluid balance and hydration, number 1, and number 2 is making sure that you're getting enough protein. And now me knowing that when you travel, you're likely not consuming enough protein on a daily basis, it even gave me more reason for me to start to think about ways that I can get more protein in. So here's a few things that you can purchase before you travel that is really helpful for you to bring in a suitcase, in a check bag, even in your carry-on, because it becomes super clutch in the process. Number 1, the first thing that I would suggest everybody to bring with you is protein like the sachets or like the protein packets that are individualized. I went and I think I went to a vitamin shop, and I bought like a box of those, like either usually Optimum Nutrition has them. The Vitamin Shop brand also has them, like whey protein isolate or whey protein hydrolysates, and they have the individual packets. And I brought those with me because those are very portable. So what I would do, and what I would suggest also for you to do, is in between meals, which is when you're usually exploring places, going to different places, and so forth, I would suggest you have a protein serving, which is about 25 grams of protein in one of those packets. And you would mix it up either with water or with something that you have like handy. The one thing I didn't bring, and I made a mess in many places, was a little funnel to be able to kind of like funnel the packet of the powder inside of a water bottle. So that's the one thing I would suggest you bring as well. The second thing that we brought in with us was like protein bars, because again, they're portable. You can carry them easy, and they usually pack them anywhere between 150 to 250 calories. So it's good to have those in between meals to be able to like add up and the amount of protein that you need to be consuming daily, but also to ensure that you're getting enough overall calories on a daily basis. Number 3, which is super important, I bring in electrolytes. The thing about traveling to especially a hot country or a place that it's hot, and it's obviously dehydration is a big issue, and the fact that a lot of times you don't get enough water, so or you don't really have access to a lot of drinkable water everywhere, so you cannot have tap water in many of these places, so you're just obviously left with doing only bottled water. So we certainly stayed dehydrated many of the days that we were there. So one thing that what you can do to try to preserve and improve actually fluid status is to consume electrolytes to be able to not only pull more water inside of your cells, but at the same time maintain a proper, since you're losing a lot of those electrolytes through sweat, you may start to feel sometimes either dehydrated and dizzy, and we felt some of those symptoms in some of those days. So one thing we did is we brought electrolyte packets. So there's a few of them that you can bring, but I do recommend, I don't get paid to say this, but I do think it's great, and they're great packets. It's called Drip Drop. So Drip Drop, you have one of those packets and you mix them with water at least once a day to be able to maintain and preserve fluid status, specifically if you have been very active on a specific day as you're traveling. Now, I even do include them on my day-to-day basis here as I, when I'm not traveling, but then it really depends on how active I have been throughout the day. These are bonus tip here. These are amazing if you actually drink too much alcohol, specifically after you come back from drinking alcohol, because alcohol is dehydrating, and the reason why you get hangovers is because there's a fluid imbalance and electrolyte losses. So what you can do is just take one of those electrolyte packets with water. I'm not condoning alcohol consumption, but I'm just telling you what to do in the case or the aftermath to avoid obviously feeling like crap for the next for 1 or 2 days after. So maybe this is a way that you can certainly do that, because you have it right after you have a night of drinking that you were not expecting it to be, or you're not expecting those 1 or 2 drinks to turn into 5 or more. So these are just some really ideal tips that you can also consider. Last but not least, the other kind of portable protein choices include things like beef jerky, mainly because it's high in salt. So you actually kill 2 birds with 1 stone by just having not only protein but also salt, specifically on days that you're sweating a lot and you're losing a lot of fluids. So those were our main the main things that we brought that was really helpful for us to be able to maintain not only a good amount of protein, but also at the same time to maintain a good amount of calories on a daily basis. So that was certainly helpful, and I highly suggest you do the same thing as well. But like I said, I lost 5 pounds, and it's mainly because of the fact that I was maintaining a calorie deficit consistently, and at the same time I was not consuming enough protein. Just to obviously speak to the fact, I'm not happy about losing 5 pounds actually, so I was not really wanting to, but even if I was wanting to, I would probably not be very happy because of the fact that I didn't lose the ideal weight that I wanted to lose, because I can totally tell, it's like I feel a little bit more flat and those kinds of things. So obviously, just to speak to the fact that weight for me is just a number, and if I lose a specific amount and I'm not happy with my body composition, I don't really care about the number, because I just want to make sure that if I'm going to lose, I want to make sure it's fat. If I'm going to gain, I want to make sure it's muscle. And I think those are some of the things that I think it's worth sharing, for the sake of this. Now, the other thing I wanted to kind of share on this episode, as I kind of pivot into a different kind of topic, because a lot of time, the past 3 episodes have been a lot of talking about post Thanksgiving nutrition secrets, what to bring for when you travel to keep your gains. Actually, now that I think about it, everything that I just mentioned on this podcast episode, I mentioned it to you guys on the episode that I did on December 3rd. But anyways, this is kind of similar in some ways. So maybe if you didn't listen to that one, maybe this one was the right one for you. But today's in the live that I did with my Facebook group, we talk about the power of manifestation, which is something that I have implemented in the past maybe 2 to 3 years, which is an exercise I do at the very end of every single year. I used to come up with resolutions, and it's funny because as Venezuelans and Latinos, we have this tradition that on December 31st, before the New Year, literally 15 seconds, like, or a minute right before the new year, we have this tradition in which we grab 12 grapes and we put them in a flute with champagne, and we eat basically at midnight, so New Year's, we eat one grape and we make a wish or an intention for the new year. So it's 12 of them. So of course it's a lot to think about when you're actually doing this and you're trying to say Happy New Year to everybody. So I stopped doing that. Now I just eat the grapes, because that was not really something that I was like manifesting in the best way possible. So, and I stopped doing that, and I also stopped doing resolutions, mainly because I was not sticking to them at all. So instead, after reading, I don't remember exactly where I got this from, but some books and some things that really kind of resonated with me. There's this idea, and I think it was Mel Robbins that kind of started instilling some of this stuff on me, that we have what we call our subconscious brain, and we have a rational brain. So our subconscious and a kind of like part of our brain is kind of like the one that does a lot of stuff on autopilot, right? So the rational brain is what is kind of like in front of our what we call frontal cortex. So it's the one that makes decisions, and we're making rational choices and that kind of stuff. So a lot of times when you start putting things into your subconscious part of the brain, you are kind of conditioning your brain to make decisions that are going to be conducive to making those things a reality, even though you're not really paying attention to how that's happening. It sounds kind of woo-woo, but it's really the truth behind this. Whenever you say to your brain, I'm going to make this happen, or acting as if it already happened, your brain is going to do everything in its power to try to align everything in your life to making sure that you are accomplishing some of those goals, because your brain is not acting against you, it's acting for you. Now, the power of your ego is to go against you. So, of course, there's a difference that exists between there. The voice in your head that keeps telling you that you're not enough, that you're not going to do this and that kind of stuff, is not really your subconscious brain. Is that ego voice like talking to you and telling you all this. So if one thing that I've learned from Eckhart Tolle in one of his books, The Power of Now, is you need to be an spectator and listen and see how that ego voice is telling you to do that, and obviously tune it out and to really be present, because that present moment is really your subconscious brain doing its work. So those are some things that I learned. But I'm telling you all of this because 2 years ago, I started writing a letter. And this letter was a manifestation of everything as it had already happened. So what I did was simple. I wrote a letter from my future self to a present self, from me to me. I wrote this as in the future. So I wrote this as it already happened. So essentially what I did was I dated this 1 year from December 31st of the year that I was in. So this year is December, or it's 2019. So this, like in the next couple of weeks, I'm going to write a letter, but I'm going to date it as December 31st, 2020. And I'm going to write a letter from that future self to that moment that I'm going to be reading that. So that present self, me reading that letter saying, Dear Andres, or Dear X in your case, and outlining and just essentially a very positive letter saying, I haven't seen you in a while, but look at everything that you have accomplished in the past year, and start putting all those things into if they already happened. Now, I have taught a lot of my clients and a lot of my the people that I mentor and the people that follow me, that we like to kind of separate our lives into different domains. This is something that one of my mentors always taught me, and I teach to a lot of people. Our life is separated into domains. Those domains are split depending on many different factors. So, for example, we have a business domain, which is going to be everything related to business growth. And even if you're not a business owner, maybe like your work and your professional career. You have the domain of relationships, which is like relationships with your spouse, with your family, and all those kinds of things. You have the domain of finances, and it's how you what do you want to accomplish from the finance perspective, how much money you want to make, what do you want to do with that money. domain. You have the domain of your health, and that obviously includes nutrition, fitness, and overall health and well-being. You also have the domain of mindset and emotional well-being, and those things are obviously going to be kind of separate. So when you think about all those things different, separate, and if you think about resolutions, every time you make a resolution, it's always going to fall into one of those specific buckets. So what I want you to think about when you're writing this letter is you're thinking about those separate domains, and you kind of create a separate paragraph for each one of those specific ones. So when you're talking about nutrition and fitness, holy shit, like that's amazing, Andres, what you accomplished in 2020. I can't believe it. Like, you didn't have a six-pack when you started this process, or when you started the year. Like, how did that happen? Or wow, like you lost so much weight like this year, like, you look like a different person, you look younger, and all these different things. It's crazy to think about this, but I wrote, like, I don't remember everything that I wrote in the letter that I'm going to read in a couple of weeks as I finish up this year. But the one thing I do remember putting on there was vividly talking about my Thailand trip, which we just completed. I knew it was going to happen, but I didn't have a plane ticket back then when I wrote that letter. I didn't know if it was going to happen this year, but I made it happen. And I put so many things that were so vividly, like I literally acted as if they had already happened, and that has power because I ingrained that in my subconscious brain, and I know everything in my power actually happened for that to also occur. I talk about finances, leaving my job, so many different things that I really haven't had a chance to read yet because I want to wait until December 31st, but it's so powerful to be able to do this. So instead of writing goals and things that have like no essence in this process in your new upcoming year, I want to invite you, my friend, to, instead of that, saying I'm going to write a letter writing the things that I accomplished in 2020 as if they had already happened, because this is a powerful trait that you can do to be able to change your perspective on how your year is going to turn out. And you don't have to write this stuff down, meaning you don't have to write every month what you want to accomplish out of that month, and just let it flow, because I promise you that it will happen. It will take care of itself. If you really want it bad enough, those things you're going to write on there, then they're going to happen. That's what we call the power of manifestation. And I invite you to try it out, because it's a much different and more refreshing way to set goals and to set intentions for 2020. That's it. That's all I have for you guys here today. We're kind of getting close to a 20-30 minute mark, so I just want to keep it nice, short, and sweet. Also realizing that some of the stuff that I said on this podcast, completely huge apologies. I may have repeated on a previous version 2 weeks ago, but hopefully you made it this far. Let me know, of course, if you have any questions. And the one thing also, guys, is your feedback on this podcast is extremely, extremely valuable. So if you want us to kind of rank more and to show it to more people and to create more impact and value to people listening to it, I want to make sure that you leave us a review and let us know what you think. Let us know how we can improve and how we can actually do much better in this podcast. So truly yours. Thank you so much for listening to another episode of Viva Nutrition Radio. This is your host, Andres Ayesta, peacing out from now Tampa, Florida. I'll see you guys next week on another episode, hopefully with a great guest that we'll bring in. Actually, next week is going to be Christmas Eve, so it'll be a great time for us to kind of chat about some things as we kind of approach the new year. And the next one is also definitely going to be on the very last day of the year. So see you guys very soon. Thank you so much for listening and tuning in to Viva Nutrition Radio. Peace out. See you guys next week. Hey, thank you so much for listening to another episode of Viva Nutrition Radio. I wanted to ask you a quick favor. If you enjoyed this episode, or if you're enjoying the podcast altogether, make sure you subscribe and leave us a review so we increase our visibility and we continue to reach more people and change your lifestyle through nutrition, performance, fitness, and health. Thank you guys so much, and I'll see you guys on the next one.